New South Wales Premier Chris Minns is speaking, announcing plans to shut down illegal hate-preaching venues.
Government's proposed changes to the law in relation to hate speech in New South Wales suburbs or in any community across Australia's suburbs. And we believe these laws, these changes to council laws, will make it easier for councils to enact those changes. Now, these changes apply to any religious institution or organisation that's operating a facility illegally in our community. I was struck after Bankstown Council made a decisive move against the Al Medina Dawa in Bankstown that in effect only a nominal fine applied to the individual organisations or the person on the nominating lease. And as a result, my belief was, and Yasmin and the Cabinet's belief was, that that could be too easily ignored by someone that was determined to keep their place of worship open in the face of a council saying that it must close. So these are tougher penalties. $220,000 per corporation, the ability to shut down utilities where they face obstinance from the person involved. We need to fight hate speech where we see it in our communities, but also where we don't see it behind closed doors. And this is one of a raft of measures that we'll be introducing over the next 6 to 12 months. Yaz, over to you.
Thanks very much, Premier. Happy New Year to everybody. It's good to be here. Look, we make no apology whatsoever to eradicate hate speech on our streets. And this is a further measure that the government is taking to do just that. All levels of government have a responsibility here, and the New South Wales government are giving our local government, our local councils, the teeth that they need to stop hate spewing in our neighbourhoods. This will give them the capacity to be able to close down places that are not, that have not been approved as a place of worship and are being used for that purpose, but actually are approved for another reason, to be closed down and to stop that hate preaching that we know is going on in our community. We've made it very clear that right across our community, wherever you are, we will not accept this type of hatred, this type of rhetoric that is spewing hate in our neighbourhoods. We want to make sure that we give our councils every bit of ammunition they need, all the tools they need in the toolbox to ensure that they can stop this practice from going on in our community. Just on another matter, if you don't mind, I just want to address the retirement of Peter Thurtell. Deputy Commissioner Thurtell joined the New South Wales Police Force in 1985. He's a 40-year veteran in the New South Wales Police. He has held every rank up to Deputy Commissioner. He is a man of incredible integrity. I want to thank him for his counsel and for his wisdom in the time that I have been the Police Minister, and I know there would be many before me that would want to say exactly the same. He will leave the New South Wales Police Force with his head held high. He has an impeccable police record, and he will be recognised as he exits on March the 13th this year. My apologies, I think it's February. Is that right? So, my apologies. He will march out on February the 13th and as I say, he will be able to keep his head high as one of the best police officers we have seen here in New South Wales. I wish he and his family all the best. His family have sacrificed an enormous amount over that 40-year career, and I know that they'll be pleased to have their husband, their father, their grandfather and their mate available to them whenever they need him. Thank you.
Thanks, Yaz, and we're all happy to take questions. Max. Well, look, it's hard to know. I mean, in many respects, these are done behind closed doors. They're not easy to identify. They're very difficult to close down, but increasingly as a result of the broadcast or the dissemination of individual sermons or lectures or hate that's been spewed, that we can identify them. I don't think the rules or the laws have been fit for purpose to confront them in our communities. And in some cases that needs to be direct hate speech laws in the parliament that mean that you've breached it, and I know that the federal government is taking steps in relation to this, all the way down to novel but important changes for a local council to confront it in our local community. At the end of the day, these planning laws and regulations either mean something or they don't. Either you can have a prayer hall here or you can't. And I'm just sick of a situation where we can't even close down an illegally operating prayer hall where you should be seeking approval, as does every other business, organisation, corporation, everything from the Boy Scouts to a dump to a garbage disposal unit has to go through the local councils. We're expecting the same things to apply for these centres.
What would the police play in shutting them down?
Well, not a big role. I mean, at the end of the day, the council has extra powers here rather than a nominal fee to close down an institution, as they do for example, illegally constituted boarding houses. Yes, Anne.
Prayer group in my house every Thursday with 20 people. Am I running an illegal prayer
No,
hall?
you're not. No, it would be the nominal purpose of that site would be the gathering, a religious gathering, to have a prayer group in that site. And if it was the case that it was operating for another purpose, or it was someone's home, or it was a study group or a Bible group or some other religious affiliation, then it wouldn't apply.
So don't you just push them further into the shadows?
Yeah, look, I've seen that argument in the past, but at the end of the day, it's sort of the releasing a little bit of steam argument, in the sense that, look, we need to have it operating at a certain level in our community, and as a result of that, if it does, A, it will lower the temperature somehow. This is the argument. It'll lower the temperature somehow. And B, well, it's better it's operating under our guise, even if it is illegal. I think those days are behind us, and I think in some ways it sends a message that at some level preaching of this nature is allowed in our community, because if it wasn't, the council or the state government or the federal government would have taken action before now. Now, I don't think that's the case, and I think that recent evidence shows us that when we see hate speech in our community, we should take it as read that they're trying to divide our community and they're trying to put hate in someone's heart, and we should confront it where we see it.
When you say a Bible
Sorry, what was
group,
that?
how do you differentiate between, say, a Bible group using a venue or a prayer hall?
Yeah, as I said, the primary purpose. Paul.
On hate speech, why should the tougher laws only apply when the ground that someone is being victimised on is race or religion? Or do you think that the federal government should consider all protected attributes, including, for example, sexuality?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to front run their proposed reforms. I'm waiting to see what they are, and when they're introduced, I understand they're imminent. They're not far away. They're really important. I know that this is an area of the law that is not easy to codify, but is absolutely essential that we do it. And I'm sorry, my sense is, despite the difficulty, state governments, federal governments, including my own governments, have been reluctant to step into the breach here because we can't make the perfect law. And I've said in the past, when we introduced hate speech laws in New South Wales that didn't apply to all vulnerable communities, it was because I didn't want to make perfection the enemy of the good, or leave a glaring error or gap in the law that would see someone being able to preach hate. And in many cases, it should be common civility to apply, the way you interact with somebody, not necessarily the law. But when it comes to racial hatred, we should have very bright, clear red lines.
Have you consulted with religious leaders on this and how to face it?
Not directly, but my understanding is the organisations, our government organisations, have been speaking with different religious groups and organisations. I mean, in many respects, you have to understand that some of our big mosques, our big synagogues, our big churches have gone through an enormous process, a difficult process, to get approval for their mosque or their church or their cathedral. And to see someone operate another one down the road without any kind of approval, I mean, it does fly in the face of the considerable expense and time that they've gone through to get the proper approvals in place. And it might not just be in relation to hate speech. It might not just be in relation to divisive preachers in suburban streets. It might be as simple as traffic, or the ability for a council to say this isn't appropriate in this suburban street. So I'm hopeful these laws are taken by local councils. I've seen some mayors that say, great, we don't want to just apply a nominal fine here, we want to actually take action. I've seen some other mayors on television this morning, one from Fairfield in particular. I mean, that guy's always on TV whinging about something. At the end of the day, it'd be great if you could just grab these initiatives and say, you know what, I'm going to do my bit.
Premier,
Yes.
how are you going to ensure, you said it's applicable to all religions, how are you going to ensure that it doesn't just target, I mean, it's the subtext within the announcement that it's targeting radical Islamist preachers, but how are you going to ensure that it applies to every religion equitably, or just other people using prayer halls?
No, I mean, it applies to everyone. That goes for all of our legislation. That goes for all of our hate speech laws. And I think the best way of demonstrating the government's commitment to have this applying across the board is that people will be arrested and charged for hate speech regardless of who it applies to. And that's happened over the last 2 years since we introduced hate speech legislation. That applies equally for a young woman that might be wearing a scarf in a suburban street in Sydney as it applies to an Orthodox Jewish man in Bondi. If you are preaching hate and vilifying someone on Sydney streets, then we have introduced laws to take you on, to confront you, to say that this is not tolerable in a multicultural community in Sydney in 2026.
Young adults who refuse to move, how would you force them to move?
I mean, self-evidently with this legislation.
You've indicated that for any new place of worship, police will need to be consulted before approval is given. What does that consultation look like? Do they actually need to tick it off?
No, the reason for that change is so that you don't have an entity or an organisation constantly moving from one suburban place to another. A gap in the law, understandable in the circumstances, but we're determined to have a situation where we don't see something close and then reopen a couple of weeks later somewhere else. So we need this intersection to take place between the council and the police. It will require more bureaucracy, it will require more regulation, I accept that. It's not necessarily going to be straightforward, but absolutely essential to make sure that the laws work.
Following up on that, do the police have a veto over a council approval? If they say no, you cannot have a prayer.
No, they'll be just supplying the information to say, we've shut this down previously, that should go into your decision making about the future place of worship.
What hate is? Who decides what hate speech is? Is it at the council level or do police decide?
No, the beauty of this legislation is it's agnostic about hate speech. We're not asking the local councils to draw a distinction between whether it has been a place of hate speech and disunity in our community or not. The simple question that will be applied by the council is, are you operating legally or not? Straightforward.
So the question before that, but if it's a prayer hall which is operating largely peacefully, there probably won't be a problem on the council's level, right? They'll have to draw a distinction between one that's operating in good faith or bad faith.
They won't. They won't. And I just say, this is one of the problems with regulation. If you're going to have rules and regulations in place and have it apply to a big mosque like the LMA or a big church like St Mary's or St Declan's in Penshurst, it has to apply across the board. You can't have a situation where on the council's website it says these are the conditions to operate a religious institution. It applies to everyone except the 5 or 6 that we just let happen in any event because we can't be bothered regulating it. I mean, that's not fair to the people who play by the rules and go through the process and put in all their documentation.
Shut down once a notice has been issued?
Yeah, there's a scale in there. Obviously, we have put in the regulation, or put in the legislation that the council will be able to apply for utilities to be shut down on a progressive scale. So not immediately, but that'll be spelled out in the legislation.
Could there be a scenario, though, where police know that there is hate speech occurring or some sort of preaching that they have concerns with, and that they sort of have a conversation with council and say, hey, this is going on, we can't necessarily prosecute these people, but maybe you'd like to apply these laws here?
Look, maybe, but again, I mean, if the rules and regulations are in place and you're expecting organisations and people to comply with it, well, why are we having a situation where we're allowing a whole bunch of other prayer halls or other religious institutions to operate outside those rules? I mean, I think that's unfair to the people that have applied by the rules and done the right thing as per the council's regulations.
Premier, we've seen this wave of attacks on not
mosques and prayer halls that have been largely operating peacefully as far as we know, and you're aware of that as well. I mean, how does the government ensure that the sort of language that is used here, and of course, as Fareed said, it is, the subtext is radical Islam, that, you know, these sorts of attacks don't continue to happen?
Well, look, I mean, I want to make it really clear that our rules are in place and they apply to everybody equally. We can't have a situation, and we will not have a situation, where racism is tolerated or vilification is tolerated against anyone in Sydney. But by the same token, I can't be and I won't be in a situation where I believe there's a problem, a pressing problem in Sydney, and I can't speak out about it or introduce legislation to confront it. I mean, this is important, and it's not the end of the changes that we're proposing in New South Wales. We've seen the worst terrorism event in Sydney's and in Australia's history, and it's not even 1 month old. And when I said in the days after that horrible crime that things needed to change, I wasn't mucking around, and the government isn't either. You can expect further changes to keep the people of New South Wales safe, and we will confront that kind of hateful ideology wherever we see it, whether it's with a novel change to planning laws for local councils, or more powers and more techniques used by law enforcement to confront terrorism where they see it in the community. Liz.
I know that you will confront it at any level. The Daily Telegraph has an opinion piece today saying many Jewish leaders did not want leftist, lesbian, former High Court Judge Virginia Bell to lead the inquiry. Should her sexuality be called out?
No, but I don't know who. I'm not sure. I haven't read the article.
Most prominent newspaper, City newspaper today. They are labelling her sexuality. Have we ever seen
Who's
that?
they?
It was Andrew Bolt.
Yeah, of course not. No.
I mean, would you discourage that sort of call? She's going to head up the Royal Commission into this.
I mean, the short answer is yes, absolutely. She's an eminent jurist. She's got a difficult job ahead of her. I think that fair-minded people, and I wouldn't include that columnist in that category, but fair-minded people would say, well, why don't we just wait and see what happens as a result of the inquiry? Someone that's been a leading figure in the High Court, someone that's led some of the most difficult and complicated cases. She's got a big job ahead of her. I think you'll find that many Jewish leaders, having heard that she was responsible for the Royal Commission, said, great, that's what we've been asking for, and that's what the Commonwealth Government's delivered. We've got confidence in it, and we'll completely and fully cooperate with the inquiry. Liz, sorry.
Will the government explore options to clamp down on the group, or are you expecting this legislation to help with that?
No, I mean, potentially, but that designation is a federal government decision, and I'm hopeful that they make it. I'm hopeful that they make it soon.
Just to follow up on that. Obviously, Canary Banks sounded unilaterally moved to shut down the prayer hall initially. Did the government or police have a sense that this was Ahmadad or his group was going to set up in another prayer hall, and this is why you moved to do it?
No, I wouldn't jump the gun there, but we're thinking ahead about potential loopholes in the legislative changes that we make. But can I just say, we'll keep making them. We'll keep making the changes that we think are necessary to keep the community safe and to stop hate preaching in the suburbs of Sydney or anywhere else we see it. Liz?
A couple of other matters. Sorry, Inspector Amy Scott has
Yes.
been diagnosed with an aggressive and rare form of breast cancer. Can I just get reflections from both of you? Obviously, I'm sure you're wishing her well.
Yeah, I spoke to Amy a couple of weeks ago. I mean, she's a genuine, bona fide Australian hero, someone that we owe a huge debt of gratitude to, not just because of her heroic actions in Bondi Junction of a couple of years ago, but also she's been an inspiration to the exact same officers that attended the terrorism event on the 14th of December. She is so important for New South Wales Police and our community. I'm devastated to hear this news. I mean, if anyone deserves a break, it's Amy, and we just wish her the very best. She's an absolute champion.
Minister,
do you want to jump in?
You also have a reflection.
Yeah, thanks very much. As the Premier just said, it's devastating news. Amy really is the epitome of the brilliance of the New South Wales Police Force. The whole police family are suffering at the moment with the knowledge of her diagnosis. We wish her and her family well. Something that I haven't shared, but I will share today, which goes to the real heart of the person that she is. On the night of the attack in Bondi, when the Premier and I went over to the police station, the commander over there, Jodie, the first thing she said to me was, the first call she got was from Amy Scott, do you need me there now? Now, you know, that is just the measure of that police officer. She is an example of the excellence in New South Wales policing. She is a person who we know has been through an extraordinary terror incident herself and saved so many lives, but she's always the first one to put up a hand, to be there, to support her colleagues, to support the community, and to be the best that she can be as a police officer for New South Wales. We wish her all the best, and she will have our full support.
Minister, just on the Royal Commission, these fissures between and fractures long known, speculated about between...
Right, that's where we're going to leave the New South Wales Government press conference here. The Premier announcing that local councils will be given new powers in New South Wales to shut down so-called factories of hate. These are the prayer halls which have been hosting hate preachers, ones that have been operating without planning approval. So they're going to be new laws introduced to state parliament within weeks.